In 1839, a single rumor inside Buckingham Palace destroyed a woman's life and nearly toppled the reputation of a young queen. This isn't just a royal scandal. It's a story about gossip, power, and how one deadly assumption turned an innocent woman into a victim of history. How did Queen Victoria, barely 2 years into her reign, become the villain in one of the most shameful episodes of her time? The year is 1839, and Queen Victoria is just 20 years old. She is new to the throne, inexperienced, and surrounded by a court of manipulative advisors. She's finally free from the suffocating control of her mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her mother's comptroller, Sir John Conroy. Victoria despised Conroy, a man she privately called the devil incarnate. For years, he and her mother had subjected her to the oppressive Kensington system, a strict set of rules designed to keep her weak and dependent. Now Queen Victoria's hatred for him was an open wound, and she distrusted anyone associated with him. This included her mother's lady-in-waiting, the 32-year-old Lady Flora Hastings. Lady Flora was a poet, a dignified and intelligent woman from an aristocratic Scottish family, fiercely loyal to the Duchess. To Victoria, however, that loyalty was a mark of suspicion. The royal court was a toxic cocktail of paranoia, whispered secrets, and political factions. The Queen's circle was pitted against her mother's, and every glance, every conversation was scrutinized for hidden meaning. In that suffocating court, even a stomachache could become a scandal. In early 1839, Lady Flora Hastings began to feel unwell. She complained of pain and swelling in her abdomen, accompanied by nausea and vomiting. She returned to the palace after a trip home to Scotland, and her symptoms worsened. In an era when medical knowledge was primitive, doctors struggled to diagnose internal ailments. Tumors, cysts, and other growths were often mistaken for something else entirely. The palace physician, Sir James Clark, was called to examine her. He was a trusted doctor, but one whose judgment would soon be called into serious question. He prescribed simple remedies like rhubarb and camphor, but Lady Flora's condition showed no improvement. Her abdomen continued to swell, her dresses no longer fit, and her discomfort became obvious to everyone at court. As her illness grew more visible, so did the whispers. The courtiers, already primed to dislike her for her association with Sir John Conroy, began to speculate. The swelling in her belly could only mean one thing to their suspicious minds: she was pregnant. And that's when the whispers began to spread. The rumor machine kicked into high gear, driven by two of Queen Victoria's closest confidants, Baroness Letson, her former governess, and the Marchioness of Tavistock. They observed Lady Flora's swollen figure and immediately jumped to the most scandalous conclusion possible. They whispered to the Queen that Lady Flora Hastings was pregnant with Sir John Conroy's child. For Victoria, this was the ultimate confirmation of her deepest fears. It combined her two greatest enemies, Conroy and her mother's household, in an act of illicit betrayal right under her own roof. In the rigid moral landscape of the Victorian era, an unmarried woman's honor was her entire worth. To be pregnant out of wedlock was a sentence of social death. For a lady-in-waiting at the royal court, it was an unthinkable disgrace. Blinded by her hatred for Conroy, Victoria believed the rumors instantly, without a shred of proof. She wrote in her private journal that Conroy was a monster and demon incarnate, capable of any wickedness. Her bias made her certain. On one side was Lady Flora's quiet, reserved dignity as she struggled with her worsening illness. On the other was the young queen's impulsive, absolute certainty that she had uncovered a vile conspiracy. The stage was set for a public humiliation. Lady Flora was horrified when she learned of the accusations. She was a virtuous, unmarried woman, and her reputation was being systematically destroyed. She wrote to her family detailing the fiendish conspiracy against her. Her brother, the Marquis of Hastings, was furious and urged her to fight back. In an unprecedented move for a courtier, Lady Flora took her case public. She had her version of events, including a letter from her own doctor published in the newspaper The Examiner. This was a direct challenge to the Queen. Victoria felt attacked and betrayed. Her anger hardened into a cold resolve. She and her physician, Sir James Clark, now demanded that Lady Flora submit to a physical examination by royal doctors to prove her innocence. The choice was a nightmare. She could either endure an invasive, humiliating internal examination, an unspeakable violation for an unmarried woman of her time, or she could refuse and be forever branded as guilty. Her honor was on the line. Victoria, meanwhile, had already passed judgment. She banned Lady Flora from court, refusing to be in her presence. The punishment had been delivered before the verdict. Lady Flora wasn't just sick anymore, she was being destroyed by a rumor she couldn't fight. Cornered and with her name in ruins, Lady Flora Hastings reluctantly agreed to the examination. She insisted her own family doctor be present, alongside Sir James Clark and another royal physician. The procedure was, by all accounts, rough, prolonged, and painful. For a woman already suffering from a serious illness, it was a brutal ordeal. But it yielded an undeniable truth. The doctors concluded unanimously that Lady Flora was not pregnant. She was, in fact, a virgin. They couldn't diagnose her illness, but they could confirm her innocence. Vindication, however, did not feel like a victory. The damage was done. When Lady Flora next saw the Queen, she did not curtsy. Instead, she looked her sovereign in the eye and delivered a devastating rebuke. She said, "I am the first, and I trust I shall be the last, Hastings ever so treated by their sovereign." Queen Victoria, faced with the irrefutable evidence of her mistake, offered a half-hearted apology. She visited Lady Flora and tried to make amends, but her words felt hollow. The public humiliation had been too great, the accusation too vile. It was too late to undo the damage. The truth had come out, but a tragedy was already in motion. The physical and emotional trauma of the ordeal shattered Lady Flora's already fragile health. Her condition rapidly deteriorated. Her brother, Lord Hastings, was relentless. He wrote scathing letters to the press, exposing the Queen's cruelty and the court's vicious gossip. The entire scandal was laid bare for the public to see. The newspapers took up the story, and soon, all of London was talking about the shameful treatment of Lady Flora Hastings. In late June, knowing Lady Flora was dying, a guilt-ridden Victoria paid her one last visit. She was shocked by what she saw. Lady Flora was a living skeleton, her body wasted away by the aggressive illness. On July 5th, 1839, just a few months after the rumors first began, Lady Flora Hastings died. She was only 33 years old. A post-mortem examination was performed, and the true cause of her symptoms was finally revealed. She had a massive cancerous tumor on her liver, which had caused the swelling and pain. She had been dying all along. When the autopsy results were made public, the backlash against the Queen was explosive. Public outrage turned to fury. Victoria was hissed at and booed during her public appearances. Crowds shouted, "Fire the foreign doctors," and called her courtiers murderers. The public didn't see a young, inexperienced queen anymore. They saw a bully who had hounded an innocent woman to her death. In the years that followed, Queen Victoria was haunted by her role in the affair. The Queen suffered many nightmares over the scandal. She later reflected with deep regret, writing in her journal, "I can't think what possessed me." The scandal became a harsh lesson in the responsibilities of power that stayed with her the rest of her life. She learned that a monarch's private biases could have devastating public consequences. Her hatred for Sir John Conroy had clouded her judgment, turning her into an agent of the very gossip she despised. The tragedy of Lady Flora Hastings reveals deeper themes that still resonate today. It's a story about the abuse of power, showing how those at the top can destroy lives with a single, unchecked assumption. It's also a reminder of the gendered vulnerability of women in Victorian society, where a woman's reputation, once broken, could never be repaired. Above all, it's a cautionary tale about mob mentality and gossip, how quickly whispers can become a witch hunt with tragic results. It's easy to dismiss this as a dusty chapter from a bygone era, but the Lady Flora Hastings scandal mirrors our own time. The tools of shame and public destruction have simply evolved, yet the same impulses remain. The thrill of scandal, the comfort of siding with the powerful, and the cruelty of judging strangers. Perhaps the antidote, now as then, is empathy and patience for the truth. Queen Victoria's greatest scandal began with a whisper and ended with a death. It reminds us that the real crime isn't always what's true, but what we choose to believe. The story of Lady Flora Hastings is more than royal history. It's a timeless lesson on the human cost of a lie. If you found this story powerful, share it, because history only teaches us when we remember it.